Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Monday, June 30th. Over the next few days, we will see an increase in lightning across the region, but first we have hot temperatures both today and tomorrow, with some areas in the upper 90s to above 100 degrees in the valleys. Today, just a few isolated thunderstorms again over parts of the central and northern Utah mountains. Also, we could see a few isolated storms in southwest Idaho or far northwest Nevada. Any lightning activity today will be kind of similar to the last couple of days, or even a little bit less than what we saw yesterday, and really on the isolated side, with just dry and gusty outflow winds the main threat. As we move into Tuesday, Wednesday, this is where we start to see some deeper moisture move up from the south. So we will see an increase in lightning over the southern areas of the Great Basin, especially in Utah and eastern Nevada. These will be a mix of wet and dry, but some will have rainfall. But we will see those gusty outflow winds with still the kind of antecedent very dry conditions. We also have some breezy southerly winds just to the west in Nevada, and also on the fringes of the Great Basin in Idaho, Wyoming, and even along the Sierra front, we could see isolated storms develop as well. Kind of have two different systems, one low off the west coast, and then moisture streaming up from the south. As we move into Wednesday, we will see continued increase in lightning, especially over the eastern half of the Great Basin, probably a little bit more moisture in Utah on Wednesday, but again, some of these thunderstorms will be hit or miss with some of the heavier precipitation, so still a mix of wet and dry, but some better chances of seeing some wetter storms in southern areas. Otherwise, breezy southerly winds will again remain over parts of Nevada with isolated thunderstorms, probably on the drier side, kind of on the fringes, again in the Great Basin, anywhere from western Nevada up into Idaho. So definitely an increase in initial attack expected across the Great Basin with this lightning, and we could see the potential of new large fires. Over the last 24 hours, we saw isolated or widely scattered thunderstorms anywhere from central and eastern Nevada, further east across northern Utah. These thunderstorms didn't produce much precipitation, but there were some amounts of precipitation in the higher terrain of Utah, kind of in this more in this cluster of thunderstorms that were probably some low-end wetting rains. Yesterday, across the Great Basin, we had 25 new fires for just over 300 acres. So again, scattered across the Great Basin and over 1,200 acres of growth on our large fires. Over the last 7 to 14 days, and no real changes in our precipitation. We've been well below normal in some areas, again, completely on the dry side over the last few weeks, the only exceptions being central Idaho. Our ERC percentile point map shows that well. We are seeing the southern half to two-thirds of the Great Basin with ERCs above the 90th or 97th percentile in many areas. Still on the lower side, anywhere from central Idaho into northwest Nevada. However, they are on the rise, and we do have obviously quite a bit of fine fuel loading concerns across northern Nevada and southwest Idaho. So we are seeing those fires continue to pop up in the lower elevations, grow to a few hundred acres. Looking at our 100-hour fuel moisture, or our ERCs rather, across the Great Basin, you can see in these areas where they're on the high side, we are either at or setting new records for the time of year. Our satellite loop from this morning shows generally clear skies. You can see the band of cloudiness from northern Nevada into northern Utah, and this is, again, where the focus of some isolated thunderstorms will be this afternoon. Also, just some overly hazy, smoky conditions will continue from Utah, and then eventually increase this afternoon with fire activity. The smoke forecast shows that well. Again, hazy conditions across most of maybe northern Nevada, Utah, with this wind flow and the fires to our south. Looking at the weather pattern for this afternoon, that low off the coast, you can see off California coast, and that's helping push some of that moisture north into the southwest, which will reach the Great Basin as we go over the next couple of days. No high risk today, but a lot of moderate risk across the region just with the hot temperatures, very low fuel moistures, and also a very low relative humidity. Winds today will start to pick up in Nevada. However, most of these gusts will be in the 20s over central and eastern Nevada, but kind of an increase in that southerly flow helping to pull some of that moisture north. You can see some of these gusty outflow wind potential in the central Utah mountains and even across parts of far northern Nevada, although fairly isolated. Relative humidity remaining in the single digits across Nevada and much of Utah. We will see the RH in the higher terrain of Utah increase a bit as we see some of those buildups and isolated storms develop, and then generally in the teens up north. So temperatures today, we'll see some of our hottest temperatures in parts of Nevada and Utah. And then thunderstorm coverage, you can see just fairly isolated, stretching across the north there. As we move into Tuesday, this is where we'll start to see more lightning coverage as that low gets a little bit closer. So we do have high risk for parts of southern and central Utah in the higher terrain with that increase in lightning coverage. And you can see looking at the transport winds, we do have probably some stronger winds into central Nevada, but again, we aren't really seeing any lightning in that area and very few human starts really in that region. So could see something obviously with the winds and the very dry conditions, but you can see the scattered outflow wind potential over the eastern half of the Great Basin where that lightning will be increasing. So the gusty outflow winds will really be the main threat. Any precipitations should still be fairly scattered or on the low end on Tuesday. Temperatures will peak up north on Tuesday, so pretty hot temperatures for southern and eastern Idaho into Wyoming. Otherwise, temperatures might tick down a degree or so further south, but still remain fairly hot as that moisture increases. You can see the potential thunderstorm coverage here on the right, showing that increasing coverage in the higher terrain of Utah. Could see some isolated storms in eastern Nevada, up towards central Idaho, Wyoming, and also the Sierra Front. So again, kind of in between two different systems impacting the region. But the deeper moisture really will be focused eventually over the eastern areas of the Great Basin, with anything up in central Idaho and really northern and western Nevada on the dry side and moving a little bit faster. So you move into Wednesday, this trough starts to move inland a bit. So this will increase the potential for thunderstorms and also push a little bit further west into eastern Nevada. So plenty of high risk for Wednesday for those mix of wet and dry thunderstorms and also up into Wyoming. You can see the gusty outflow wind potential really stretching further west, showing where that lightning potential might be as well. Otherwise, relative humidity will be on the upward swing just with the moisture moving in, but most areas still kind of in the teens, maybe in the 20s for central Utah as that moisture is a little bit deeper in the higher terrain. But again, the overall heavier precipitation will still be somewhat spotty, even with the increase in humidity. Wednesday temperatures will come down from their peak, but still remain hot. And you can see the lightning coverage on Wednesday, pretty widespread over the eastern 2/3 of the Great Basin, but still some isolated thunderstorms anywhere from the Sierra Front to far northwest Nevada. We'll have to watch this stretch here on the west side, as those would definitely be on the drier side and probably start to move a little bit faster as that trough moves inland. Also, some scattered activity up across Idaho and Wyoming. So definitely expect an increase in initial attack by the Tuesday, Wednesday time period. 3-day amount of precipitation, you can see maybe the heavier precipitation focused to the central Utah mountains, but still somewhat spotty even towards our large fires, although they will see an increase in humidity. Otherwise, a fairly light precipitation and again, hit or miss across the rest of the region. So moving to Thursday, this trough starts to move east across the Great Basin, but still will keep the thunderstorm focus over the eastern half of the region. Again, possibly up even into northeast Nevada. So we'll be watching that. Right now, no high risk. We'll see how the moisture pushes north. It might be enough to mitigate some of that lightning concern, but that'll be something we're watching for Thursday. Then on Friday, another low moves into the west coast. So this could increase our wind flow a little bit going into Friday across Nevada. So we'll have to see how much lightning we get. This could be a potential high risk for gusty winds and low humidity following some of those areas of lightning. Then as we move into Saturday, possibly some moisture moving into northwest Nevada, southwest Idaho to maybe lower some of that overall significant fire potential in the north. And then we start to dry out again over the weekend, so we will see generally moderate fire potential. 7-day total precipitation, not much different than the 3-day, maybe a little bit more in central Idaho with that next wave. And then the 8 to 14-day outlook, taking us from July 7th through the 13th, shows definitely warm temperatures still, and that above normal precipitation signature tied to the developing monsoon moisture in the southwest to southern and eastern areas of Utah. But we will definitely see pulses of this monsoon moisture. It doesn't look like an overall wetter trend. We'll see periods of thunderstorms and then several days of drying out as well. So we'll continue with that pattern probably going through the next couple of weeks. That concludes the webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.